It was a rainy evening when the world stopped for Daniel Carter. The billionaire who owned half the skyline of the city had never known what it felt like to have his breath snatched from his chest, until that phone call came through. A trembling nurse's voice pierced the storm outside his office window, words falling like cold steel. "Your daughter, she's lying unconscious on the street. You need to come. Now." In that moment, all the money, power, and influence he carried became useless. The world's richest man suddenly felt poorer than a beggar standing barefoot in the rain. Friends, take a seat and hold tight, because what unfolded that night is not just a story about a wealthy man and his only child. It's a story about choices, regrets, and the fragile threads that keep families together until a single misunderstanding tears them apart. This is the kind of story that reminds us we're all human, no matter how high we rise or how far we fall. If you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and second chances, then please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to StoryNest. Your support keeps stories like this alive and spreading warmth to hearts that need it most. Daniel Carter had been called many things in the press: a shark, a genius, a titan of industry. But behind the glint of expensive suits and towering offices was a man who had once been a devoted father. His wife had passed away when their daughter Lily was just 7, leaving Daniel to raise her alone. In the early years, he tried bedtime stories in the glow of a night lamp, pancakes on Sunday mornings, little pink birthday cakes. But as his empire grew, his presence at home shrank. By the time Lily turned 16, their once warm apartment had turned into a mansion of silence. Lily Carter was known in her school as the girl with sad eyes. She wasn't the kind to show off her last name, though everyone knew she was the daughter of a billionaire. She longed for ordinary things: to eat dinner with her father without the vibration of his phone interrupting, to have him cheer at her school's art exhibitions, to hear him say, "I'm proud of you," without glancing at his watch. Her loneliness was the kind that hid behind polite smiles. The rain that evening fell harder as Lily stood alone on a dim street near the city's old library. She had run away from home after a bitter argument earlier that afternoon. Her father had cancelled yet another important dinner they'd planned, a dinner where she'd finally wanted to share something that mattered to her, a scholarship offer to study art in Florence. But Daniel had brushed her off with a cold, distracted, "We'll talk later," as he rushed to a meeting. Hurt and unseen, Lily left the mansion carrying only her sketchbook. As darkness deepened, Lily wandered the city streets, lost in thought and tears. She wasn't watching where she was going when she slipped near the curb, her head hitting the pavement as a car's headlights screeched to a halt just inches away. A passerby dialed emergency services while trying to shield her from the rain with his jacket. At the hospital, Nurse Evelyn, the one who had made the call to Daniel, watched as Lily was rushed to the emergency room. The girl's pulse was weak, her sketchbook soaked but still clutched to her chest. Evelyn, a mother herself, felt an ache of worry as she cleaned the rain from the unconscious girl's face. When Daniel arrived minutes later, drenched despite the chauffeur's umbrella, he was no longer the polished billionaire the world knew. He was just a father, his hands trembling as he signed the consent forms. The sterile smell of antiseptic mixed with the metallic tang of fear in his throat. For the first time in years, he felt helpless. As the doctors worked to stabilize Lily, Daniel sat in the corridor replaying the last few months in his mind. He remembered the times he had missed her school play, the texts he'd left unanswered, the birthday dinner he'd skipped because of a last-minute merger. The weight of his regrets pressed on his chest heavier than the storm outside. Hours passed before Lily finally opened her eyes. They were glassy and confused at first, but when they landed on her father's face, creased with worry and exhaustion, something unspoken flickered between them. She was too weak to speak, and he was too ashamed to start. During the following days at the hospital, Daniel barely left her side. Evelyn, the nurse, noticed the change in him, the way he gently held Lily's hand while she slept, how he brought her favorite warm soup instead of fancy flowers, how his phone stayed on silent the whole time. The hardened edges of the tycoon began to soften as he learned about Lily's art scholarship from Evelyn, who had found the acceptance letter tucked inside the damp sketchbook. The revelation broke him further. His daughter had been waiting for his attention to share a dream, while he had been too busy chasing deals. One afternoon, as sunlight filtered softly through the blinds, he finally apologized to her, his voice cracking as he confessed he had failed her not as a provider but as a father. Lily, still fragile but strong in heart, squeezed his hand and whispered that all she had ever wanted was his presence. Daniel's world shifted after that. He started attending every therapy session Lily needed for her recovery, canceled business trips, and turned down a major partnership to be with her. The media speculated, shareholders complained, but for Daniel, none of it mattered anymore. He realized the empire he had built meant nothing if the person he loved most felt unseen and unloved. Weeks later, when Lily was discharged, the two walked out of the hospital together under a shared umbrella. They went home not to a mansion of silence, but to a smaller, warmer corner of it, one filled with laughter, sketchbooks scattered on the coffee table, and the smell of pancakes on Sunday mornings again. The story of Daniel and Lily spread through the hospital staff like a quiet lesson. Evelyn, the nurse, said she had seen powerful men crumble, but none had risen stronger than a father who chose his child over his fortune. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to StoryNest to hear more real, moving stories that remind us of what truly matters. Your engagement helps us bring more light into a world that sometimes forgets the power of love and forgiveness. Before we end, I have a special request. Comment below with one thing you'd like to say to someone you love but haven't said in a while. Your words might inspire someone else to reach out too. And as the rain cleared that day, Daniel finally understood, sometimes life doesn't ask us how much we've earned, but how much we've loved. That night, the billionaire father learned that the richest man in the world is the one who still has someone to come home to.